Hello, weary traveler. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to give my very controversial opinion that Diego Lopes is actually not that good. Now, I know. How foolish of me, right? How silly of me, how casual of me, right? I must not know anything about fighting because everybody loves Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes is the next big thing. Today, from the comfort of my dressing gown at 2 a.m., I want to go through the potential next matchups for Diego Lopes and why I think that he is about to have a very hard time in this division, and ultimately who he kind of beats and who he loses to from the top 15. Now, before I start, I do want to say that Gene Silva and Diego Lopes has been rumoured for 318. I saw these rumours about a week ago and then they seem to have kind of chilled out and died down, so I don't actually know if this is legit. I don't know if it's happening, but either way, I think he loses to Gene Silva. I will explain a little bit why, but the main focus of the video is kind of after Gene Silva as well. I don't think he has many easy fights ahead of him, without some improvements, definitely. So now Diego Lopes, obviously great grappler, exciting, powerful striker, good pocket boxing, very loopy with his shots, but ultimately it causes entertainment, so I would say he's a bit of a fan favourite. Kind of came in as like an underdog, kind of, late replacement fight with Evloev. A lot of people thought he should have won that fight. Reminds me a bit of somebody else in this division, Yair Rodriguez. Kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously, Lopes had a fight in the Contender Series before and lost, and we'll go through that today. I want to go through his record because I don't just want people to think I'm making this video being some sort of Diego Lopes hater. Obviously, he's a very fucking likable guy. I've got no reason, I don't have anything personal against Diego Lopes, but I do have something personal against his team and their lack of fucking cage cutting, which I'll get onto a little bit later on. Now, on the screen to my left or my right, however I end up fucking editing this video, you will see the current UFC featherweight top 15 ranking, including Alexander Volkanovski at the top. Now, this does include Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria. I will very briefly touch on those matchups because ultimately they're not going to happen. Both of those guys seem to have left the division. More so Ilya than Max. Maybe Max comes down. I don't know what Max's plan is, but as of right now, Max Holloway's next fight is booked at 155, so I'm not going to be treating him like he's going to be Lopes's next fight or even the fight after that. No need to really speak about the first matchup. Alexander Volkanovski, obviously we just saw this fight. Kind of exposed a little bit about Lopes's game that was already there, and you could already see the holes, but I feel like Volk just kind of made them a little bit more amplified. Now, Volk did get caught in this fight, and a lot of people were picking Lopes. I'm not going to sit here and say that I thought Lopes was going to get schooled or anything like that, but I think it just solidified my opinion that was already kind of creeping up, which is that Lopes, he's been overrated quite significantly, I think. Now, number one contender Max Holloway. Again, I'm not really going to get too much into this, but I think Max is, among many others in this division, is a terrible matchup for Diego Lopes, and this is kind of where I'm going to start breaking down some of these issues. Now, if anybody listens to Jack Slack, the boy himself, he always has something to say about Team Lobo. Now, Team Lobo is Diego Lopes. He's also a coach as well as a fighter there, I think. Alexa Grasso, Lupi Godinez, Ariana Aldana, basically a few sloppy boxers. Now, Diego Lopes is not a sloppy boxer, he kind of is, to be honest, but he's a lot cleaner than some of the other guys, or girls I should say. And it's funny because Alexa Grasso is hailed as like the boxer of that division, but I don't know. They can't cut the cage. They can't cut the cage. They can't effectively use the cage. They can't implement the cage into their game plan. So Ilia Topuria, who is the next fighter on this list, a lot of people will say that the thing that makes Ilia Topuria is his power, right? Which you're not entirely wrong, obviously. I mean, he punches very hard and he gets knockouts with his hands. Obviously, that is how he's finishing fights. But in my opinion, what makes Topuria more than the power is the ring awareness, the cage craft, the cage cutting, just utilizing the fence as it's supposed to be there, utilizing the barrier as it's supposed to be utilized. It's a fight in a cage, and so many people just do not use the cage. And it turns out if you use the cage in any context, whether it's Habib shooting a single against a cage, trying to cage wrestle, or Hamza, or whoever it is, all of these Dagestani style grapplers and all of the even American style grapplers, going back to like, Brock Lesnar and all of these old school UFC fighters, their game plan was get you against the cage, lock the hands, lift you up, pull your legs in, and dump you on your ass. You know what I mean? That the locked hands double. It's been said Greg Jackson basically called the locked hands double the most overpowered sort of move in MMA sort of thing. It's like if you can get the locked hands double down, and your game plan is to take your opponent down, it's a pretty good avenue to take, probably the best course of action to take to get them down. Obviously, this is back then. People have found ways to defend against a locked hands double a little bit, but it's still kind of OP, and you don't see too many people using it. And my point is that is the cage. The cage allows for that. Ilia Topuria is probably one of the best cage cutters in the featherweight division, probably one of the best cage cutters on the roster, to be honest. A lot of fighters get called stalkers, right? Oh, he's stalking him. I feel like that is exactly the word you'd use to describe Ilia Topuria. He stalks, he uses his lead foot well, he throws the left hook if you circle into his lead side, he'll throw the big overhand right if you try and exit out that way. He's got very good cage cutting, and as soon as he gets you in that pocket, as soon as your back is against the fence, he lets it go, and too many MMA fighters these days are trying the whole chess move type thing. A lot of guys don't want to throw shots if they're not going to be landed clean. They don't want to look silly. They don't even want to. Some strikers like Leon Edwards, they don't even want to land a shot unless it's clean. If Leon Edwards throws a weird scrappy check hook as he's leaving the pocket and it just kind of grazes the guy, he's not happy with that. In his head, he'd rather have not thrown that hook. He still landed, but the act of looking like a sloppy striker is more important to him than actually just getting that one strike on the tally, on the scorecard, which is kind of stupid, and but it is what it is. My point is that Ilia Topuria is nothing without his footwork. He is nothing without his cage cutting. He's nothing without his ring generalship and his ring craft in general. And Diego Lopes and all of the Team Lobo people just do not have it, and it is gonna cause problems. As I get onto the next matchup on this rankings, Yair Rodriguez. Now, Yair Rodriguez should be Diego Lopes's next fight. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of the fucking beef, but if you go and watch the press conference for Volk and Lopes, that whole card, Yair and Diego got into some sort of altercation. They have beef, they have history, some shit that happened in Brazil. I don't fucking know what it is. But Yair Rodriguez is somebody that could make Diego Lopes look very fucking silly in that fight. And I feel like Diego Lopes, he's almost like, his style's very like, it's almost like catch and shoot, but not in the catch and shoot way that like a Piotr Jan would do, or like a traditional boxer would do, where it's like wait for the shot to touch the shoulder and then throw the two, or just kind of these sort of pocket boxing fundamentals. Diego Lopes is like, if I can reach out and put a hand on you, like I'm biting down on the mouthpiece, and he's got good form on his punches, but he just fucking throws them. And poor Brian Ortega, I mean, you couldn't have got hit any cleaner with a two-piece from Diego Lopes than he did. Stood right in front of him, took a step back in the pocket. Diego Lopes caught him with two beautiful shots, knocked him out with the first and woke him up with the second. Yair Rodriguez is not going to stand there and trade heavy boxing combinations with anyone, let alone Diego Lopes, who is notorious for having heavy hands and loves his big looping shots in the pocket. So I think Yair Rodriguez beats Diego Lopes. I think so far Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria both beat Diego Lopes. So although Max and Ilia have moved up, we're now down to the top 5, and I think he loses to every single one of these guys, including the next guy, Movsar Evloev. Now, the last fight was close. The last fight was a very good showing for Lopes, and the argument that you would jump to is if those guys had a rematch, Diego Lopes had a full camp, etc., Lopes would probably win that fight. But I think enough time has passed. Movsar has improved enough. He's had a title fight on the horizon for a little while now, so he'll be as sharp as he can be. I just think he'd go in there and make it look easy. I mean, we've just seen Merab beat O'Malley for the second time and made it look a lot easier. This tends to happen in these rematches, man. You know, it's a tale as old as time in combat sports. Two guys fight, they have a really intense, close fight, they rematch, and one of them just gets slept instantly. Look at Volk and Makachev too. There is so many, examples of that, and I feel like Movsar would come in and beat Diego, but if I'd say it's like a 65. I'd say it's like a 70-30. I'll give Diego Lopez chance. Diego Lopez has a 30% chance to beat Movsar, in my opinion. I rank number 6 Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen. I love Arnold Allen, man, and maybe I am a bit biased because he's English, but I also think he's a very entertaining fighter. And if he had more eyes on him, I feel like he could be a bit of a star in England. You know what I mean? Not many people give Arnold Allen the credit he deserves. He's pretty funny on the mic. He's a pretty awkward guy. He's got that sort of true British like sarcasm thing that he can get the UK fans behind him very easily. Everybody loves his dad. That came out weirder than I meant for it to come out. But you know what I'm saying. Arnold Allen is a G. But unfortunately, you can kind of entice him into those brawls. We saw it with Dan Hooker. I mean, he kind of initiated that brawl. It's like he just came out and just bottom lip started quivering. He just fucking started absolutely lighting Dan Hooker up. I don't know what kind of trauma activated when that bell rang, but poor Dan Hooker anyway. But Arnold Allen, I feel like if Arnold Allen fought Diego Lopez, I feel like Diego Lopez could kind of get him into that brawl, and he could definitely catch Arnold Allen. Now, Allen has a good chin. He showed he's got a good chin. You know, he's fought a lot of good fighters at the top now and kind of gone to war with them and kind of lived to tell the tale, so to speak. So Arnold Allen, I would say Diego Lopez has a good chance of beating, but if Allen sticks to the game plan, he uses his footwork and he kind of uses the blueprint that is already clearly out there on how to beat Diego Lopez, you know, on the back foot, outside, just kind of dance around him, make him just follow you against the cage. He's not going to cut the cage on you unless he improves, in which case obviously a lot of these opinions aren't valid anymore. Number 7, Brian Ortega. I will give Lopez that he's literally just beat Ortega by decision, but again, that's decision, man. Like, I think Topuria probably sleeps Ortega, like, and I'm sorry to keep comparing Lopez to Topuria, but that was Topuria's next title defense. You know, if Volk and Lopez didn't fight for the vacant belt, Lopez would have fought Topuria. So this is the competition level that we're talking in the featherweight division, and I think that Topuria finishes Brian Ortega. I think he beats Arnold Allen. I think he would beat Evloev. I think he'd beat Rodriguez. Obviously, these are all just opinions, but this is my point. I think Volk, Holloway, Topuria are here, and I think Diego Lopez is somewhere down here with some of the other guys on this list, like even the Rodriguez. I would say that Rodriguez is just a little bit sharper than him. 8, Lerone Murphy, another guy that could probably make Lopez look very silly, you know what I mean? Just kind of dance around him, expose the footwork, expose the lack of cage cutting, you know, go one direction, change direction to get out from his back against the cage. It's kind of just easy to get away from Diego Lopez. It seems to be easy for a lot of these guys. So in a division with so many kind of tall, rangy, flicky, Alex Caceres style fighters, that's just going to give Diego Lopez fits. And I'll tell you what, we're going to go through his record now. So he lost against Joanderson Brito in 2021 on the Contender Series. Nothing really to be ashamed of. It was like fucking 4 years ago. How was that 4 years ago? That's scary. Then lost to Nate Richardson, had a couple of grappling matches, came back to MMA and got a couple of wins together. Now, as you can see here, he beat Angel Rodriguez, right, who is a 10-10 fighter. And then he fights Movsar Evloev in a short notice UFC debut and loses that fight, but has a good showing, right? So instantly you've already got the fans on your side because you fought one of the Dagestanis and done well. You're a jiu-jitsu guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, and when the Dagestani, the Islam versus Charles, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu versus Dagestani / like Russian grappling, you are going to get some fans on your side if you kind of make the Dagestani look human. I know it sounds daft, but it's the only way I can word it. He then fought Gavin Tucker and armbarred him in the first round, fought Pat Sabatini and finished him in the first round as well. 2 okay wins, but nothing really to write home about. Now the win against Sadiq Youssef, I will give him that. First round finish over Sadiq Youssef, that is a very good feather in the cap. But this is kind of where I start to worry. So we all remember Dan Ige stepping in short notice for Brian Ortega. I think it was so many hours notice. It was like the same day basically Dan Ige stepped in. I'm pretty sure so much has happened since this fight. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Now, if you are gonna be the next star of a division, if you are going to prove a point, if you're here to say, listen guys, I'm a step above the rest, yes, I lost in Contender Series, but I've put it back together. I took Evloev, one of the best fighters in the division, to a hard fought decision. You should be finishing a 1 day notice Dan Ige, but I will play devil's advocate. Look at Hamza and Kamaru Usman. There is something to be said about those short notice replacements, and I don't think it would be fair to judge somebody completely on how they would perform against a short notice replacement, even if stuff like game plan doesn't come into it. I think just the mental side of like, we weren't fighting each other this time yesterday and now we're fighting, and I think there's something to be said about the kind of erraticness of that, so I won't judge him too hard on the Dan Ige performance. Brian Ortega, now obviously he comes out and two of the first punches that he fucking throws, one of them KOs Brian Ortega and the other one wakes him back up, and he went on to beat Brian Ortega quite comfortably, which is good. But again, I suppose it's not fair to say because he almost did finish him, but you should be finishing these guys. Brian Ortega has kind of been washed for a little while now. You know, the last time he looked good is when he shaved his head and came in and beat Korean Zombie up. I can't really think of a performance since then. Obviously, he had the close calls with Volk where he almost subbed him. He's a good fighter. I'm not taking anything away from Brian Ortega, but you should be finishing this guy. Again, I think Taporia would finish Brian Ortega. If Diego Lopes is going to be the next big thing, I think he should be finishing him. And I guess you could say, well, Volk should be finishing Brian Ortega, but come on, you know what I'm saying? My point is that Diego Lopes is hyped as like the next big prospect. A lot of people compared him to Taporia. I think Taporia would fucking murder Brian Ortega at this point. And then, of course, he fights Alexander Volkanovski in a quite undeserved title shot, but it was for the vacant belt. Situation arose. Again, I'm not trying to be a Diego Lopes hater, I promise, but I'm just going through his record here just to show you that, hey guys, he hasn't fought anybody too good yet. You know, don't shove him into the hardest fights just yet. And that is what people are trying to do. You know, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, Dan Ige, Brian Ortega, and then he goes to Volkanovski or Taporia it would have been. That's some scary shit, bro. That's all I'm saying. Right, where were we? So I think Lerone Murphy beats him. Aljamain Sterling. Now that is a pretty interesting fight. I'd like to see that fight. Sterling versus Lopes. I'd probably give it to Lopes. Just a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more intimidating. Aljo has some cool striking. He has some good kind of techniques, and I do rate Aljo's striking for the most part, but I don't think that he could avoid the big shots from Lopes, to be honest. So I think that Lopes beats Sterling. Josh Emmett, I think Diego Lopes would beat Josh Emmett. I will give him that. I think Josh Emmett is going to be happy to stand there and trade with you, and I think Lopes would make him pay for that. Although I do rate Josh Emmett more than a lot of people do. Gene Silva. Now, Gene Silva is supposedly his next fight, and I think Gene Silva is quite special. I think every once in a while in this sport, we see a prospect that comes up and everybody wants to jump on the hype train, but nobody wants to look like a casual. None of these cool fucking hardcore fans like me want to be seen saying this guy's really good only for him to get finished, and then people are like, oh, I thought you said he was good, do you not know what you're talking about? Gene Silva's special. I would say it's worth jumping on the Gene Silva hype train. I think he is kind of a step above the rest, and I think out of the fighting nerds, it's him and Carl Bahalia. I think those guys are taking it the most serious. I think Mauricio and Carlos Prates are going to be kind of they're going to be like Kevin Holland. Like, they're both better than Kevin Holland in the potential that they have for the division, but I don't think I can see Carlos Prates beating like half of the top five. And I can't really see Mauricio Hofi beating many. I mean, the KO over Bobby Green is nice, but come on. So I think it is worth hopping on the Gene Silva hype train. I think he takes his career very seriously. I think he's got like a Marab vibe where you can see that he clearly wants to be like a bit of a star. Like, he's willing to put himself out there and do these silly videos and stuff for these viral moments, and he likes to go viral. He likes to be the talk of the town. So I think Gene Silva's got all the potential, man, and I think he would sleep Diego Lopes. And if those guys get booked and Diego Lopes is the favourite, because obviously Lopes is more experienced, XYZ, I'm putting some money on a Gene Silva first round KO. I know that sounds pretty crazy. Diego Lopes probably has a hell of a chin. I mean, Volk cracked him with some big old shots as he was weaving out the pocket and he ate them. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think Gene Silva is a special fighter. And I think if you want to ruin Diego Lopez's career as quick as possible, I think you match him up with Gene Silva. And I think Gene Silva will take that fight with both hands, see the ranking next to Diego Lopez's name all the way at the top, at number 2. And I think he'll lock in for that fight, and I think he'll come out nasty, and I think he'll viciously finish Diego Lopez. Again, just opinions, but I think Gene Silva is just not. He's not the one to play with those sort of boxing exchanges. He seems like he's quite switched on with like the distance management and just the little things that we've seen so far. He kind of looks special, you know, like a Joshua Van or a Nathaniel Wood, or you know, some of these guys. You look at them and you go, okay, you get it. Like, you get MMA, you understand. Where some other guys, they kind of have to sharpen it. Now the next fight, Yusuf Zalal. Just look at the bottom of this featherweight rankings. You've got Lerone Murphy at 8, you've got Aljamain Sterling at 9, you've got Gene Silva and Yusuf Zalal at 11 and 12. This is looking pretty fucking decent, boys. And then you've got obviously Nathaniel Wood over outside the rankings, who I just mentioned. There's some pretty good fighters at featherweight coming up, man. But Yusuf Zalal, I would. It's too early to say. I think you have to give Diego Lopez a bit of respect. He does have a good ground game. He does have a lot of technical skills. I don't want this video again to come across like I think Diego Lopez doesn't deserve to be in like the top 10. I think he beats a lot of these guys, as I've stated in this video, but I just think he's being a little bit overrated. I'm not going to speak on the Yusuf Zalal fight too much because we need to see more from Zalal, but I think I'll give Lopez the respect he deserves and say that I could see him probably beating Zalal, but again, doesn't cut the cage. He just wants to stand there and trade in the pocket. I don't know if Yusuf Zalal, you never know with these fucking guys, you know what I mean? Number 13, David Onama. I think he beats David Onama. Number 14, Dan Ige. He's already beat Dan Ige. Number 15, Calvin Kattar. I think everybody would agree. I think he beats Calvin Kattar at this point. But yeah, that's the top 15. So just a quick recap. I think he loses to Volk. He loses to Max. He loses to Ilya. He loses to Yair. He loses to Evloev. He probably beats Arnold Allen. He beats Brian Ortega. He loses to Lerone Murphy. He beats Aljamain Sterling. He beats Josh Emmett. He loses to Gene Silva. 50-50 with Yusuf Zalal, just because we need to see a little bit more of Zalal at this top level. He beats David Onama, he beats Ige, he beats Kattar. So I'm not saying he's completely trash. I'm not saying he's washed or any of these things. I'm just saying, look at his record. Don't get too excited. Give the guy some time to develop. He went from fucking Dan Ige to Brian Ortega to Volk for a title, when Volk is trying to make a statement and come back from 2 knockout losses. You know what I mean? It's a big fight for him to be kind of thrown into, but the alternative was Ilia Topuria. So ultimately that's it. I just wanted to make this video. I wanted to get these thoughts out because I can see Diego Lopez getting stopped soon, and I think he'll go on a little bit of a skid if he's given the wrong matches. So that's all. If you want to see more videos from a 26-year-old man talking to you about MMA in a pink room, please feel free to subscribe. I stream the cards sometimes. I had a little time off YouTube, but I'm back now, and we're grinding with the fucking content, man. So if you have any ideas for any videos, comment them down below. And yeah, my name's Harry. I talk about fights. Boom, there's Kamaru Usman as the moon.